This is a good question that deserves solid answers because we may face one of these situations here in the very short future. And that is what happens when you have a candidate that is running for the president of this country withdraw or die or fall ill and not be able to serve this position or get in trouble before this election is over. There's a lot of red tape connected to a lot of this because, as with many different laws out there that the higher ups know about, they use the loopholes and they keep everyone else out. But in this process, the election process, where it takes the people's involvement, obviously, the people need to be up to speed with what can happen here because a few different things can go down. This has to do with timing. Okay, if you start to work backwards in time, let's say, what happens if the winner of the election either dies or withdraws after Congress has counted the votes? And this is counting the votes from the Electoral College in January. But what happens if they die or withdraw or any of the things I've stated? And this happens after they make these, they count them, but before this person presumes office. So after the end of January, they've counted all the votes. What happens if, say, Clinton goes down? What would happen? Well, the first part is easy. If a president-elect dies before assuming office, then the 20th Amendment resolves this problem directly. It says that the vice president, which would be Kane in Hillary's instance, or Pence and Trump's, they would become president. Now, the 20th Amendment only specifically addresses the death of a president, not the voluntary withdrawal of a president or them getting in trouble and not being able to run. Presumably, a president-elect who wanted to withdraw could wait until January 20th and do it then. At that point, Article 2 in the 25th Amendment make it clear that the vice president would become president. So what happens if this takes place instead after the Electoral College has voted in December, but before Congress formally receives the counts? This is where things start to get a little unclear, because it states here that if the person who wins the Electoral College vote is considered the president-elect, even before they officially receive all the counts, then they say that the answer is the same in the previous, that the vice president would receive this. But legally, it would not be clear whether someone is the president-elect before Congress formally receives and counts the votes of the electors in January. If the winner of the November election and in the December Electoral College tally is not considered the president-elect and dies before January, then no clear legal answer is given by the Constitution or by statute. Now, this is where things, so how about if the winner of the November election dies or withdraws before the Electoral College meets in December? Now, this is where it gets even messier. They state here, the issue is how an elector should or can cast their votes. Should the elector vote for the dead winner of the election, or if the elector otherwise should be obligated to choose somebody else? A lot of times this falls back to the vice president. But as you keep going through these scenarios, and you get to the scenarios that are finally closer to us as to what happens if right after Election Day, right after the 4th, before anything can be counted or anything like that, what happens then? It leaves the scenario people are talking about at the moment. What if a party's nominee dies or withdraws before November elections? Here, within the coming week or something happens. This is where it gets even murkier, and this is where they talk about the DNC and the RNC. They would come together and they would choose, but it does not spell out the rules. It does not spell out the process. It does not spell out anything besides the fact that they're going to get together and they're going to choose someone to replace. Now, the RNC would be put in the same situation, their body being smaller, but that is basically how it is shaking out at the moment when you try to figure out what would happen from here if one of these people was to not be in the race, which way would they go? The latter, the later we go into this whole thing, it all shifts toward a vice president. But it gets very murky when you track back basically to this point all the way up to Election Day, or right around Election Day and everything. It's going to take time for them to count. So that window is the murkiest. And it really has a lot of questions still there as to what would really happen, because if they're going to get together, they can choose somebody, and the question is then who? Would a true dark horse come out of the shadows at the very last moment for something? It's a possibility, given that window of time. But I just wanted to throw it out there. There's more information here that keys in on this. You can read this whole article, get a feel for what they're saying here. And most of the time, like I said, it will shift back to the vice president. But, I pay attention to the details in this. It's first off, okay, what are they trying to key in on here? Is there anything hidden, or are they hinting at? And at the bottom, they say, well, if you choose a party, they say, let's just say Democrat. For whatever reason, they chose the Democrat. I look at these little signs that are ticker taped out there that you need to pay attention to. But an interesting read, to say the least. And if things change, I will obviously update with more information. Make sure to check out our recent sponsor here. For those of you out there looking to stock up on insulin, heart medication, any kind of medical supplies out there without a prescription, or going to a doctor, having or wanting to get something more than a 30-day supply, and to do so before it all hits the fan. That's why I chose to go through these guys. They're there if you guys need them. And like I said, given this environment, we never really truly know what's going to be going down. All I can say from my heart is that I do feel throughout this process, they're going to have some things set to go down. We're in that window till the end of January, till someone officially takes the spot. And once again, these are the steps of what would happen if anything happens between now and then. It's been Dabu7.